Get ready. In this episode, I'm going to dispel the number one myth about max-funded IUL. What is the myth? That the insurance policy is going to implode as you get older. It's going to crash and burn. The cost of the insurance is going to get so expensive, it's going to run out of money. Baloney. I'm going to prove to you in this episode, if it's structured correctly and funded properly, the cost of insurance gets cheaper as you get older. So get ready. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for more than 5 decades, helping thousands of Americans optimize their assets, minimize taxes, and empower their authentic wealth. First of all, you need to understand that there's a lot of IUL policies out there, unfortunately, that are structured incorrectly. But let's dispel this myth that the insurance policy is going to crash and burn. It's going to get so expensive. And we have people like Dave Ramsey saying this, and I just roll my eyes because, bless his heart, he doesn't even know what he doesn't know. So I'm going to simplify it in this episode. If you've watched very many of my videos or read very many of my books, I talk about the concept that with max-funded index universal life, you're doing the opposite of what you would normally do when you buy insurance. See, most advisors use life insurance for death. They should call it death insurance, okay? So where you're trying to get a certain amount of life insurance coverage for the least premium so that if you happen to die, it pays out. Well, Universal Life and then later Index Universal Life was the brainchild of E.F. Hutton. They were a brokerage firm. And they realized that max-funded cash value life insurance is a tax-free cash cow, and that you can accumulate your money tax-free, and then you can use that money for tax-free income or any investments or whatever you want. And then at the end of the day, when you finally do pass away, anything left in there blossoms, increases in value, and transfers tax-free. So nothing else does that in the Internal Revenue Code. So what E.F. Hutton did is they said, why don't we take the least amount of insurance that we can get away with in the Internal Revenue Code and put in the most premium the IRS allows, and let's self-insure. Now, why? Because in Section 101A of the Internal Revenue Code, life insurance is tax-free when you die and you leave behind a benefit. And all E.F. Hutton said is, why don't you own that death benefit? Why don't you convert your money to tax-free death benefit by owning the death benefit? Now, a lot of people have a hard time understanding this, and so we call this self-insurance. So let me use this metaphor of a bucket to help you get it. So I've compared max-funded IUL to a bucket, like a repository for years in all of my books. And so here we have this bucket, this container, this repository to accommodate the money that you want to have grow tax-free and to create tax-free income. The death benefit is secondary, okay? And so you take IUL and you talk to somebody and they go, well, I'm 60 years old. I'm a male. And I have a couple of $100,000 that I will net out of my IRAs or 401ks, and I realize I'm not going to be in a lower tax bracket. And so there's actually, like $300,000 in there. I pull it out, I'm going to pay tax of a third, but I'll net $200,000, but I'm going to have to pay tax on that sooner or later. I just as soon get the taxes over and done with sooner than later. See, these are smart people. They realize they're not going to be in a lower tax bracket when they retire. So they say, can I put in $200,000 and have it be tax-free the rest of my life? Okay. Yes. Okay. I also have a rental property that I'm sick and tired of being the landlord, taking out the trash, fixing toilets, evicting tenants. I just want to sell it. And so I'm going to net probably $200,000 out of that. I would like to put that into a max-funded IUL so I have liquid access to that money and it grows tax-free from now on. Great, there's $200,000. I also have $100,000 sitting in a bank or credit union. It's earning a pathetic 3% interest rate. The current of inflation is coming down at 6, 7, or 8. I'm going backwards. I want to increase the liquidity, safety, rate of return on that money. So this is called asset optimization. You reposition underperforming and non-performing assets, meaning they do not pass the liquidity test, the ability to access your money, the safety test, the rate of return test, and tax advantage test, as well as property structured max funded IUL. And so they reposition it into an IUL. So let's say this person is going to do 200,000 net strategic rollout out of IRAs or 401ks, get it out of that volatile market, 200,000 net out of a rental home, 100,000 moving out of the bank or credit union. So let's say we have 500,000. Okay, I'm super simplifying this. So this happens all the time. People come and say, I want to optimize 500,000 by increasing the liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax benefits over where this money currently is. Okay, so I designed an IUL to accommodate that. Now, he could buy a whole bunch of life insurance for 500,000. That's not the objective. You want the least amount of insurance you can get away with. For a male age 60, that's $1 million. The older you get, the less insurance is required under these tax citations called TEFRA and DEFRA. So if this was a 20-year-old female, if she wanted to put in $500,000, she might be required to have $5 million of insurance. But the cost of insurance for her is the same as a 60-year-old. In other words, the spigot on the bucket, which is the cost of the insurance that the IRS says has to be there, or this will not be tax-free. It exceeds the definition of tax-free in the Internal Revenue Code. Okay, a 60-year-old male only needs $1 million of insurance. So the older you are, the less insurance that's required. I had a 78-year-old come to us years ago, and he had 3 blocked arteries, adult onset diabetes, a prostate cancer episode, 6 sisters, all predeceased him, and 3 brothers. You would think he had 1 foot in the grave. Well, he was rated table D. If you don't know what that is, the cost of insurance, the spigot on the bucket, was double than it would be for a normal 78-year-old. If he wanted to put in $500,000, which he did, okay, he could get by with only about $800,000 of insurance back then. But because he was rated, then I was able to squeeze down the death benefit. Because what was he doing it for? He wanted to put in $500,000 and pull out $50,000 a year of tax-free income to net 10%, which he did. And so once we found out he was rated, we just squeezed down the insurance from $800,000 down to about $650,000. Now people say, well, who pays $500,000 for $650,000 of insurance? He does. He's not doing it for the death benefit. If he puts in $500,000 and dies, it's one heck of a return. It leaves behind. He just made $150,000 tax-free, but he did it because he wanted $50,000 a year of tax-free income. So we took the least amount of insurance, which was $650,000. The older you are and the more unhealthy you are, the less insurance that is required. Why? So that the cost of the insurance is the same, no matter how old or how unhealthy you are. Are you starting to get it? Okay. Now, if you're totally uninsurable, then you put the insurance death benefit on a surrogate, your spouse or your adult children. It's the owner of the bucket that gets all the tax-free income and tax-free growth, okay? That's called surrogate life insurance. Now, let's go back to this example. This 60-year-old male puts in $500,000. You used to be able to do that in one fell swoop, which many of my clients back in the 1980s did, and they immediately started pulling out $50,000 a year of tax-free income like this 78-year-old that had a life expectancy of an 83-year-old, okay? But then in 1988, under the Technical Miscellaneous Revenue Act, that spells TAMRA, the banks, brokerage firms, credit unions, they couldn't compete with these because they're safer, they pay higher interest, they're tax-free, and they blossom when you die. And so they didn't want to kill these because this is where banks and credit unions put 30 to 40% of their tier 1 assets. Did you know that? When you put money in a bank, that's called OPM, other people's money. And banks disclosed in 2008, they take 30 to 40% of their tier 1 assets. What's that? That's assets that have to be liquid and safe in case of a run on their bank. Guess where they put it? In these insurance companies, BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. And they increased the safety by 6 notches. A lot of banks are rated triple B. A lot of these companies are rated triple A. They increased the safety by 6 notches, and they were paying their depositors in 2008 1% or less, and they were turning around and earning 5% or more. How much more is 5 than 1? Don't say 4. They're making 5 times what they're paying you by putting it in insurance companies where it's safer. Okay. Now, folks, in the Great Depression, banks closed. 40% never opened their doors again. There wasn't one single legal reserve insurance company that went under in the Great Depression. This is the backbone of America, and that's what E.F. Hutton realized. So going back to this male, $500,000, I can get away with about $1 million of insurance or less. Now, here we go. Let's self-insure. I can choose what is called the increasing death benefit if I want to maximize what I leave behind when I die. That's not the objective for most of our clients. So if they die, this cash value, he puts in 500,000, he cannot put it in all at once. He can maybe only put in 120, 125,000 the first year. The first day of the first year if he wants. But in 1 year and 1 day, the second policy year, he can put in another 125,000. Now he's got 250 grand. He's got half of his money in there. If you do that, you have tax-free access. So you have to comply with TAMRA if you want to have tax-free income, tax-free access to your money. Now, if you filled it up all at once, that's called a MEC, a modified endowment contract, and it will accumulate tax deferred in here. And if you die, it will blossom to $1 million tax-free. But if you want to have tax-free income, then you have to comply with TAMRA. So this person that wants to put in 500,000 is put it in as fast as the IRS allows under TAMRA. So in 1 year and 1 day, he could have it probably 40, 50% full if he wanted to. Didn't have to, but can. And then in 2 years and 1 day, he can have another 125,000. And then in 3 years and 1 day, he could probably have this 500,000 pretty much fully funded. Maybe in 4 years and 1 day, there's a tiny little bit left that he can put in. It depends upon your age. But the point is this. Instead of having this added on top of that when you die, that means the cost of insurance, okay, goes up as you get older. No, that's not what we're doing here. We want the cost of insurance to get cheaper. The cost of insurance is the net amount at risk to the insurance company. The insurance company is only going to charge you for the net amount at risk. So this is called the level death benefit. So when you have a level death benefit, okay, when I have 500,000 in there, and if I die, they still pay out just $1 million. Well, 500,000 that was my own money. But that's what I want because they're only charging me for the difference between $1 million and 5. They're only charging me for half as much life insurance now. The spigot on the bucket is already half of what it was 3 years earlier. Are you getting that? The insurance has gotten cheaper. It's half of what it was just 3 years earlier. Now, if I have 500,000 in there, it's going to grow because the cost of insurance is getting cheaper. It's getting smaller. Now, I've actually earned an average rate of return of 9.62% ever since 1980, even before Index Universal Life. 9.6 divided into the rule of 72 means your money is going to double in every 7.5 years. Okay, so I've had many people that have experienced that. And so 500,000 doubles in 7.5 years. So now we're in the 10th and a half year in this example. 500,000 has grown to equal the death benefit. Did you hear that? He is totally self-insured now. He now owns his tax-free death benefit. What's the cost? Well, technically speaking, under TEFRA and DEFRA, if he happened to die when he has a $500,000 of cash value and that equals the death benefit, the insurance company pays out 5% more than that, $1,050,000. But they're only charging him for $50,000 net amount at risk. He has $1 million of cash sitting in there. That $1 million of cash, even though he has a little $50,000 net amount at risk, he can generate $100,000 a year of tax-free income the rest of his life by having $1 million in there. And the insurance keeps getting cheaper as you get older, okay? Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a moment, but let's say he doesn't need to start taking income. He wants it to double again. So $1 million doubles to $2 million in 7.5 more years. So in the 17th, 18th year of the policy, all of a sudden his $1 million and now has doubled to $2 million. What's the death benefit? It pushes the death benefit up. The original death benefit was only $1 million. They're not charging him hardly anything for the net amount at risk. If he dies, when he has $2 million of cash in there, they pay out $2.1 million, $100,000. They're only charging him for $100,000 net amount at risk. The interest on $2 million dwarfs the cost of $100,000. Okay. Now I just taught you something that most people don't understand. The cost of insurance is getting cheaper as you get older. When he has $2 million in there, he can generate $200,000 a year of tax-free income. The insurance keeps getting cheaper as you get older, which means this. You go out to like the 17th or 20th year, if he earned 11% that year, he would be netting 10.9 plus. The cost of insurance is 0.1% of what it was when he started. What I like to do is just round it. That if you go out down the road to 15, 20, 25, 30 years and go back retroactive back to day one when you hadn't even finished filling it up yet, the cost of insurance usually drains out about 1 percentage point if it's properly structured, okay? If you earn 9, you've netted 8, retroactive back to day one. If you earn 11, you net 10, which is true for most of our clients. They net cash on cash within 1% of the gross rate of return. That 1% is not a cost, it's a benefit, because if you happen to die, it makes your money, because you're self-insured, transfer income tax-free to your heirs, okay? Because you own the death benefit. You're self-insured. So the myth that the insurance policy gets more expensive as you get older, it's gonna implode, the spigot's just gonna get huge, that's a misconception. The spigot gets smaller as you get older, and that spigot's really not a cost, it's a benefit. That's money that would otherwise go out the window in unnecessary tax. If you bought term and invested the difference, you'd have to be earning 15% in a tax-deferred IRA or 401k to net 10 after tax. I only have to earn 11 to net 10 here, and that 1% is money that would otherwise go out the window in unnecessary tax. So when I own my insurance, until I own it totally, Uncle Sam's paying for it. Does that make sense? Indirectly. So folks, if you want to learn more about this, because if you don't get it, you're missing out. If all you do is buy into that, the naysayers that say, oh, this is going to get more expensive as you get older. No, I could show you hundreds, even thousands of IUL policies that are so much cheaper now that they've had them 20 and 30 years and they're in their 60s and 70s. My IUL that I took out 30 years ago cost me 1/20th what it did 20 years ago. It's gotten way cheaper the older I got. Okay. So if you want to see examples of what I'm talking about, I recommend you claim a free copy of my most recent best-selling book, The Laser Fund, which is actually 2 books in one. This side is about 200 pages, 14 chapters with all the charts and graphs and explanations if you're a left brain learner. If you're a right brain learner, you learn more by stories and examples. You flip it over to this book. This is about 100 pages, 12 chapters with 62 actual client stories, okay? If you want to use your whole brain, then you can read both of these books. It's 300 pages, jam-packed with information. You can pick it up on Amazon for anywhere from $20 up to $60. And if you do that, thank you. But I'll gift you a copy for free. You simply go to laserfund.com or click on the link below. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you via priority mail. And while you're in there claiming your free copy, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, there are those formats for your investment. But you can even schedule to attend a free educational webinar. No cost, no obligation. We do it on a weekly basis. And you can even schedule an appointment to talk to an IUL professional that will actually, with no cost, no obligation, create several examples of a properly structured max-funded IUL, how it works in your particular set of circumstances so that it gets cheaper as you get older by doing it correctly.